All right, students, let's go through how to navigate Teams and OneNote and the class. This is going to be for EBP, but it's also a lot of it is going to apply to the clinic course. I might do a second one for the clinic course specifically, but much of it will apply. And also for navigating the chats and the channels for the undergrad team. So in the Teams app, you do want to have the full-on desktop app for Teams. You have activity, which is your chats, like the most recent things or notifications, chats in specific. There's also a thing, and then there's Teams. That's next, and it will list all of your teams. Now, sometimes it'll pop up here, and if it's the wrong one, you just go here to the top and pop back, and you can navigate to your other teams. Once you're in here, it starts in the general channel, which is general chatting, questions, announcements, that sort of thing. For mine, the next one I put was assignments. You know what? Let me back up. Let's do all the things in the general channel. The next thing in the general channel, if you look here at the top, is that it's files. And in the files, I have included my books, if you want to borrow my books. In here we have the Handbook of Clinical Audiology, which you can buy a physical copy if you want, but you can borrow mine. The Otoscopy Atlas, Bollinger's Otolaryngology, Clinical Otology, an Acoustic Admittance Measures book, an Otoacoustic Emissions book, an Auditory System textbook, and a Speech Audiometry book, and the Audiology Science to Practice book. So you might find some of these useful. We're going to skip over class notebook for a minute. Take a deep breath. It's a lot. The next tab I think you have is assignments. It does look a bit different for me than it does for you. But it'll have the list of what you have, and it should be in order by due date. And the next thing should be your grades. Now let's go back to class notebook. This is where a lot of information and a lot of your work is going to be done. I haven't quite finished setting it up yet, so things will be moving into your personal sections in a little bit. If you click here, you have Welcome, which kind of explains what OneNote is and has some links to resources. We have Collaboration Space, which is where all of you can work in this. Anybody can type in here. So do kind of be cautious about where you're working on things together, because it can be a little glitchy. In here we have clinic maintenance information. We've got the Lamar biological calibration things. We've got infection control, which obviously is being updated. And we have audiometric testing. Now, it's a lot, so instead of having it all in the class notebook, I just put the link. So if you click on it, you should be able to open it, and it should bring you to the full manual. And this is a manual that we have been building over the past several years. If things need to be corrected or you have something cool to add, this is a collaborative work which you will still maintain access to even after you graduate. And it's built in OneNote, and OneNote is like a digital binder. So the main section leads to a tab that has subtabs or subheadings. So the point of those is to have the actual reference available, and if you put a new reference in, you do need to hyperlink it. So for instance, when you are learning about or reading about a topic, for instance, one of the early topics is otoscopy, right? So before class for otoscopy, you should read the chapter in the textbook, which is the Handbook of Audiology, and the clinic manual. Also note, purple is like built-in infection control. When you're learning how to do it, we want to do infection control. It should be integral to it. This has been my policy for forever. It's not just for COVID. We've got pictures, we've got different ways, we've got ways to think of it. A lot of the answers for your lab will be in here. Note, though, we have a hyperlink. If you click on it, it takes you to the tab to see what it was actually. If it's got a plus, it means somebody needs to put some information in it. If it's got one of these little tildes, it means it's an interesting article and never got used. And when it's just plain by itself, it means there's not really anything to add or that it's complete. So let's check out tympanometry because that's going to have more in it. Sorry guys, my computer's pretty slow at home here. Okay. So tympanometry. We have the actual article if you want to read it, plus a research article analysis. Now, granted, these were from people learning just like you will be learning, but part of my class is to actually pick articles, take articles, and write an analysis of it. So, works in progress, but they do give you some examples of how they're done with a small change. When some of these got started, I didn't have a separate section for statistics. That's required now. So this is how you navigate the clinic manual, which is very important both for the EBP class and for clinic. Don't delete things though, please. Just be cautious about what you do with things. Now, if you put this in the app, you can actually truncate this so it's easier to scroll through. Reflex thresholds, speech audiometry, and I will periodically call it the clinic procedure manual. I will call it the protocol manual. I will call it the clinic protocol manual. All of those are the same thing. And I'm working on, and you guys might be the ones to build it potentially, fleshing out some of these other sections, but I don't teach those classes, and so I don't have the authority to necessarily assign them. So let's close this back out and go back to the rest of OneNote. In here, in the collaboration space, we have conditions. There's an example and instructions on how to do the conditions. And we have Random notes that students put to bring forward, add to them. I'll bring it to the next year's group. And we have a space for you to compare and contrast the disorders. So, the 5 disorders that you guys will be working on this year, the big paper, the big assignment that everything is leading up to, is you're going to have 5 cases. One will be an acoustic neuroma, one will be a noise-induced hearing loss, one will be a fistula, specifically superior semicanal dehiscence, one will be a cholesteatoma, and one will be otosclerosis. So through the semester, you will be building these unfolding case studies. For these, you will make all the decisions about who your patient is. And you will collaborate with each other to gather this information and to understand the topics. So I built spaces for that. There's also a section about cultural competence. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. There's a section for the normal acoustic pathway, which I created a shared collaboration space for you guys to develop a write-up on what the normal anatomic and acoustic pathway is. The basis of your main paper for me, which spans the 3 classes, depends on understanding both normal anatomy and abnormal anatomy. So you could use this as part of your studying for your anatomy class. You can take it in, you can fill it out every week as part of your studying. You could define what the normal acoustic pathway is. Then we have spots for the cholesteatoma, otosclerosis, noise-induced hearing loss, fistula, and acoustic neuroma. You'll notice those are duplicated over here. That'll be important later. In the content library, there's a whole bunch of information in forms and documents. A lot of this will be propagated to your personal pages and sections. If you mess it up in your personal section, you can pull a fresh copy from the content library. You cannot make changes to anything in here. Remember, collaboration, you can make changes and everybody can work together. Content library, you can copy, you can see it, nobody but me can make changes. Then you have your personal section. In your view, you will only see you. I, obviously, as the teacher, can see everybody. I'm going to pop into somebody's section, which should everybody be, it should be empty right now. There's going to be a section for article analyses, and there's forms for it. And you will do, there's the example form here, like to explain what you're supposed to do. And then you will be doing a tympanometry article, an acoustic reflex article, a pure tone air and bone article, a speech article, and then a masking article and a case study article. These are assignments. Some of them, like the speech one, you will all do the same article. Tympanometry, it's also going to be the same one. The ROOP article, which the article should be over here, and it kind of explains and shows you how I will want you to turn in the other ones. But everybody's doing the same tympanometry article because the undergrads will also be doing it, and you're going to help them learn to read the article and write a write-up on it too. But other ones, you can pick articles. If you don't, I gave you some examples. but some of them you get to pick your own. And of course, the case study article, you're going to pick your own. Ideally, in the pick your own ones, you should pick one that you will use for the paper and that defines your disorder or disorders. I can't make you really, but that's going to help you a lot. Then there's a section for the case study turn-ins. And there's going to be 3 turn-ins before the final paper is due, and you'll have spaces for that. So this one tells you, each one tells you kind of what we want, but what's going to happen is you're going to bring forward the stuff you turned in previously that I corrected or gave advice on that you corrected. You'll bring it forward to the next one and add to it. This is an example one I did for middle ear effusion to show you kind of what we're looking for. This is the whole thing. You won't necessarily do all of them on. Now, if you scroll to the right, I've made spots. I've given you some more instructions on how I want you to explain things, and then I've made spots for cholesteatoma, otosclerosis, fistula, superior canal dehiscence, and noise-induced hearing loss. You'll answer the things that you know, you'll add things in, and you'll put your documents in. Now this looks hyper-specific, and there's a reason for that. The main final paper, you have a template. It's built in a template that you're going to work in. So I know a big research paper sounds scary, but really every week you're going to be working on things that are going to go into that big paper. So as long as you work on it consistently every week, it's going to be okay, I promise. So we'll pop out of there. I will post the lectures and send them, or no, I made a spot for you to take notes in. Some people do like to take notes digitally, and some people also like to have faculty members assess how their note-taking strategies. That's a thing some people ask for. So I put a spot in case that was a thing you were interested in. You're not required to use that though. Handouts is where I'm going to be putting PowerPoints. Labs are pretty much weekly, and they're kind of involved, most of them, except for this first intro to clinic lab. So the otoscopy lab. You'll pull and do as much of this as you can ahead of time. During the reading, you have to read the chapters before you come to class, right? You'll have to read that part in the clinic manual, right? So this gives you a space to start answering the questions and thinking about what you've seen. And then it's going to link to your work, which is part of your assistantship, with doing the undergrad labs. So you think about what you're having, you put information in. Later, you'll also perform otoscopy or do whatever it is, and there's things that you'll turn in. So these are each kind of dual stage turn-ins. You'll use it kind of to document your work for your assistantship. Some of them are just narrative writing, which, like I said, you can glean the answers from the pre-readings, from the actual lecture, and then from the actual lab that you do with myself or Dr. Redding. Some of them have a little bit more to them. You can blame some of it on the previous years, not this one. This one doesn't have it. Also, I put references and readings and copies of forms that you might find helpful in each one. Acoustic Admittance has one. You can blame, the students who've gone before. They wanted like quizzes and like examples. So you've got an example and then a question. So what's the most likely Jurger temp type for this? For this one, assuming an adult over the age of 18 years, what is the range of static compensated admittance? For this one, you just take what it is and then you compare it to the norms. We'll talk more about that when you class, but some of these are literally for you to take the information out of a particular norm and post it in so you can verify or check that you're looking in the right spot. Remember I said static compensated admittance for an adult? Whoop, there's the answer. Go wild. There's another one with reflexes. And here's the A, B, C, because sometimes the pictures get a little bit weird, so I've got them in there. And then here's your thing for turning in for your lab partners and for the undergrads. There's a similar thing in here for speech audiometry with masking. It's all based mostly on the Guthrie article and the sprint chart. For all of the audiograms that you'll see, you'll assume that bone scores match air. And you'll just answer these quiz questions. You can copy and paste your results if you want down. This is the first time I've done it quite this way. But you'll mostly be using it from this or from this sprint chart. And again, the audiograms are in here. I put some notes on how my thought process went for it. How I would fill out a sprint chart for this particular one. That sort of thing. We've got labs listed. These are going to be the things that you're mostly doing on Fridays. So that's kind of how the labs will be navigated. And if there's something that you're like, oh, I know I did that in undergrad, something that you needed to bring from undergrad to here, I have in the content library, I have a list of resources, which are some recommended basic videos. You've got your basic anatomy and physiology. You've got hearing science, principles of audiometric calibration, principles of admittance, acoustic reflex threshold patterns, pure tone testing and audiogram interpretation, and masking. Some basic things that I know some people, it just is hard to get until you really use it. And then a little bit more advanced ones, otoscopy for audiologists, admittance, like what's new, what still works. That's getting kind of old. I should probably look for a newer one. The vanishing airbone gap, that one's cool. These are some extra things. Oh, this one, monosyllabic word testing. I definitely need to update that one. If it looks the same when we come in, remind me to do that. So that's the resources tab. So in general, it'll start you in welcome. Collaboration is where you work together. There's multiple ways to access that. The content library, which is copies, and it has resources. And then your personal section, which is where you're going to do your personal private work. So let's pop back to the general tab. Now let's go to assignments. I've put lots of ways to get to assignments. Remember the tab in the general section? There's also a channel, and it's a chat channel. So if you have a question about a particular assignment, you can just come in here and be like, at Aaron, my first name being Aaron, or at ES Burns. Let's see how it may not let me tag myself. So it should be at Aaron, should be enough to pop up and you can tag me and ask me a question. Or if somebody in your class knows, they can answer it. Like any of us can chat in here on these assignments. So these, I think I put them in here in order, but don't exactly quote me. Now you can then view the assignment. Some of them I may need to like update because I'm working on it. Student view. Instructions, there should be instructions. I didn't manage to do that with this one. I'll probably have to update that. See, that's the kind of thing that you could ask me a question on, though. You'd be like, I see a 2020 hearing screening test. What am I supposed to do with this? And then I would, and then you can click on the test for it. And what you're going to do for this is watch the video for hearing screening and take the test. And we'll do a lab. That's part of what I talked about. We'll be doing in orientation. We'll be doing hands-on and learning some things. So we'll put that together, and there's your test. Same thing for vision screening, all that sort of thing. So chat channel is where you can ask me questions or we can discuss things. Cultural competence. So let's go back a minute to those 5 cases, those 5 unfolding cases. Actually, let's go back to the class notebook so that we can look at what the actual assignment is a little bit more. Assignment instructions. There we go. How do the assignments work? We have a whole bunch of different things. Right now we're going to look at the overall view. So there's weekly hands-on lab activities in small group format. So they pair up with the lectures. And each of the labs have a written self-study component, and several require you to work with the undergraduate students. This is because people learn better by teaching. Now, working together is encouraged on these labs. A lot of my stuff, I expect you to work and encourage you to do collaborative work because that's real life. When you are out in the field, you will spend a good bit of your time reaching out to people, talking to people if you want to be good at your job. So yes, allowed. It's not copying if you work together and y'all work on these labs together and take notes together and do videos, do a watch party on the video and chat with it. That is all encouraged. But do be aware if you were leaning too hard on the fellow students, you may not have the perspective you really need to learn the material. So don't be the person who lags and lets everybody do the work. Now, if you do wish for feedback on any assignment prior to the due date, you can email and request it. Time and energy available, I do try to be accommodating. We also have learn before lectures or pre-reading assignments, and those are super, super simple. I'll pop into one in a little bit, but basically it's like these 3 questions, which is, what is one new thing you learned in the reading? What is one thing that your perspective was changed on compared to learning you completed in undergrad or leveling? And what is one question you still have after the reading? They're not for every section, but I find them helpful in gauging where you are and for letting me know what I need to address or go back over. Those are due the weeks that they're due at 8 a.m. of the class day. Here's some instructions on the labs and how to turn them in. Here's some more instructions on working on article analyses. And if you look, I have like references for where I'm getting pedagogical theory from. So here's some brief instructions on working on the case studies. They're cumulative. You put them in. The end result has to be all of these together. I kind of feel like a crazy person because I could have sworn I had a whole big thing in this. Ah, there it is. So throughout the semester, you're going to be building a case study manual and you're going to be following these things. One of your patients must also have a speech and language impairment, and one of them must also have a different primary language and culture. One of them must have a different primary language and culture from your own or from the dominant culture of the area. I don't prohibit you from combining these two communicative issues into one patient. I do say it's not advised because it's going to make your life much harder. So you have 5 disorder patients, one of whom has to have a speech and language impairment, one of whom has to have a different culture and language. Cultural competence is a required competency for the program and the field and for accreditation. This is an ongoing and dynamic lifelong learning process for myself as well as all of you. So let's try to share. And that brings us back to cultural competence over here. Let's chat. We have a whole chat channel on it. I did put the whys, some of these articles to help you out. So that's the cultural competence part. Now, again, these are going to be cumulative. You're going to bring them forward, and it should incorporate things from all of your classes, from anatomy, from hearing aids, and from EBP. It's putting them together. Hearing aids, actually, your final is actually to take the parts of this paper and turn them in. So for each test choice and result for each test, you should discuss the effects of the disorder or the lack thereof on the different ear parts. See how this connects back to anatomy? It includes but is not limited to impedance mismatch, to the cochlear amplifier, to nonlinearity of the cochlea, to the 8th cranial nerve, tonotopic organization of the inner ear, everything. Everything you learn in anatomy should apply and be used multiple times in this paper. And then for each patient, you must make recommendations. These recommendations must take into account the anatomy and physiology of the patient, the acoustic properties of the ear, real ear, test box. Basically, everything you learn in hearing aids, you should find places to apply it in the paper. So I've created, this is an older version, it's not quite, but it kind of gives you a sense that Madame Bovary middle ear effusion case I showed you an example of. This is an example paper. But I've also got you this EBP outline, case study outline. So this is what you will be doing the paper in. So I downloaded it. I advise you to save it in OneDrive. So if you want somebody to do any spell checking or corrections or looking at it, that it's easier to do that. But see, it's a whole template. I have notes about what you're looking for. Actually, this is kind of not true. You'll put it somewhere else. It's not in a folder. I changed my mind. But anyhow, instructions on abstracts. This that is not part of APA format, but useful for organization. Look, I've got you an outline for your SLP disorder patient. which audio and SLP disorder is it, and how do they relate? How did you change things due to the disorder sections? Here's one on the cultural competence. Here's for the introduction. I'm explaining what you need to do, that this is an introduction to the paper overall. You need to develop a thesis that ties the 5 cases together. Here's the reference for thesis statements. And besides the thesis, you must also include a complete description of the acoustic pathway as it is in a normal individual. This, all 10 of you could put the same one in, because I'm literally telling you, you can collaborate in that collaboration space to make a beautiful, beautiful normal acoustic pathway. See, this is a group project and we have a group space. Then we have the cholesteatoma one, and there's a whole template with instructions. Obviously, when you're done with the instructions, delete them. There's also outlines for it. If you aren't ready to write the paper, you can do your little outline notes. Again, when you're done with the paper, delete them out. When you're done with them, delete them out. Now, new computer, new design. Let me see. View. Navigation pane. Aha. If you want to jump to things, since I made this an outline, you can literally pull up your navigation pane under View and adding navigation pane. And you can be like, oh, I'm working on results for fistula. Here we go, acoustic admittance results. There it is, type, type, type. Easy peasy. So this is how it looks in the Word document. If you're working on it in the browser version, then it's going to be slightly different. I'm pretty sure I have instructions on that as well. Yeah. In browser version, it looks like a long-running page, and formatting does look strange. Use reading view to see what it's really going to look like, and also to get to the interactive outline. Usually, it's view interactive outline or navigation pane there. So I'm going to close this out, close that out, and come back over here. So we have a section for cultural competence, for y'all to chat, because you're all going to presumably be doing different cultures, but talk about it with each other. And when you have files on why it's important or whatnot, you can save it so that people can review. You can post, you can talk about it, and you are going to save files. Same thing for the absolutely normal auditory pathway. By the way, you don't need the absolutely part. I just made it because this section is going to go in alphabetical order, and I was trying to make it a thing. So I would say each week put things new that you learned as it applies to your disorder. Put things in from, again, anatomy class, from hearing aids class, any of that in the different sections. So I expect everybody to be pretty active in the cultural competence one and the normal auditory pathway. Those are very much group. The 5 disorders, I will be splitting you guys up into pairs. And while you all have to have five cases for your main paper, you are all also responsible for one disorder in its kind of entirety. So remember, I kind of blew past that and said we'll talk about that more later. If you go here to notes, this note thing will link you back to, remember, general, class notebook, the collaboration space. It'll link you to the exact specific one. So, acoustic neuroma turn-in, the first equivalent of 1 to 2 pages is generalizations of the syndrome. Now, this format is so specific because this is Dr. Howard's format, and you will need to know how to do this later because she's going to have you doing bigger, more complex disorders. I added this that you must complete a description of the acoustic pathway as it applies to your disorder. Next, you'll have presenting complaints, expected medical history, expected social history, all of that, which again, you can see like the full instructions if you're in the full class view. You'll put all of these things in for your disorder. So when you're working on, say you're in the acoustic neuroma vestibular schwannoma group, well, it seems crazy. It seems impossible to find out how all of the things for all 5 disorders, but somebody else is going to find that data for you, and you can go to their section and be like, okay, what is tympanometry supposed to be for this disorder? So when you're putting your particular patient's case together, you're sharing the work. So this is where you're going to work in. So that's going to be the other big project. I'm not entirely sure what I did on this and why I've doubled it up. Well, oh, this is just more instructions. These are just kind of the instructions here at the bottom. When you're done with the instructions, you can pull them out. So anything that you reference, you must have a full-on copy of it in here. And for organization purposes, you want to label the file as best as possible as the APA format. So let me show you a quick shortcut for that. It's not perfect, but it helps. So if you go to scholar.google.com and you would maybe say acoustic neuroma reflex threshold. You were looking for an article and you decided you were going to reference this one. Well, first of all, can you actually get a full-on copy? Nope, you're probably going to have to get access to it somewhere. But say you did. Let's see if we can get this one. Acoustic neuroma correlations between morphology and otoneurological manifestations, right? I don't even know what that is, but let's pretend. You can click. I went too fast, didn't I? You find the article, you can go here at cite. It is not always correct. Always double check it, but you can copy it so that when you let's see if I have this one. Oh, fingers crossed. Keep on finger crossing for me. I have no clue what just happened there. Okay, let's try. VPN. VPN is how you can best access the library stuff from home. My apologies for the delay. Let's try that again. Ah, there we go. If I'd have been on campus directly, that would have been easier. VPN sometimes helps. So we download the article. I'd already copied it. Oh, look, it's after 5. All my friends are getting off of work. So I can download it though, and I can put it in. Now, one thing you have to do is if it has any the 2 dot things, colons, those need to come off. And then you can save it. Always double check. Sometimes PDFs don't want to download, in which case print to PDF. Okay, I'm just going to look like a crazy person. My apologies, new computer. I thought I had all of my stuff muted. Y'all, I'm old. Somebody needs to help me with technology. There we go. Let's do that. Never assume they downloaded, by the way, these articles. Always pause and check. And there it is. Oh, delightful. Some days are just technology is not my best good thing. Ah, that one was damaged. Fun. Some days I really don't like technology. The other thing you can do is if you find them on Google Scholar, you can go directly to the Lamar library. And see if you can find it. And of course not on this one. Sometimes you just let it be whatever its name is. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Okay. Then you can always come back in, open it, and make sure it behaves. I prefer to name them immediately. It doesn't always like to do that. It's telling me, hey, it doesn't like that name. The name was too long, but just like that's why it failed. So, but you can see you have enough information to figure out what it is, especially the authors. That's how you want it listed. And I do a lot of this, guys. I hope it doesn't drive you too much, but I'm going to show you how I stumble through processes and where things get weird. I'm not perfect. So you want a copy of it in here, though, so that you can reference it later, so anybody else can. You go to the Files section. You can put folders in here if you want, but then you just upload the file for anybody's use. If you want to reference something, it has to be in here for other people to use. If I double check and somebody referenced it and it's not here, it looks like you never did. So if that's using Lens to make PDFs out of book chapters, also very rarely should you reference books. We'll talk about that later. But anything that you use, the reference should be in your section so that we can come and check. So we've got spaces for that. So you've got notes where you're doing the actual project, files where you're uploading your references, posts where you chat. So if you are the acoustic neuroma patient, the first thing we're going to talk about is otoscopy, right? Can you see it? No. So you'll discuss how on otoscopy you don't see it. What about cholesteatoma? What will you see? You would see the cholesteatoma, you might see drainage. So you would put that in here and then whatever files and references, and also put it in your notes section. So a little bit each week. I want you to not just passively read the book and passively read the clinic protocol manual. I want you to think, what does that mean for real life? How do I use this information? So those are the disorder. We will talk about that more. The last one is sleepy time video content. So some of these things will be recorded. I am experimenting with this. Recording obviously is not my strong suit. So there is here, there's the stream, and that is Microsoft's answer to YouTube, and it's not great. But if you prefer to look, I'll have all of the videos in here. I am also learning, or trying to learn, YouTube. This is my very first YouTube video. So I have now a YouTube channel. Oh my God, what is my life? So I have a YouTube channel and I will embed them in here. So if you guys want to chat, and sometimes I'm kind of requiring chatting, this is probably the best place. I guess you could chat on the actual YouTube comments, but that's public. So I'm definitely not requiring that. Also, please don't mock me to the public and share them for mockery. I'm trying, I promise. But you can chat in here, and that's what I'm kind of looking for. To try and make this whole online video learning experience as multifunctional and multimodal as we can. So just for watching easy stream, embedded YouTube, all of that's going to be in here. Me explaining what the heck I'm trying to do, all of that's in here. And I guess I could put the actual video files in here, but I don't know if the closed captioning would go along with it. But if y'all want me to actually put the actual video files in here, I guess just ask me to, and I will. I was figuring stream and YouTube would probably be enough. So that's probably enough rambling on for today. So that's the orientation to how to use Teams and how to use OneNote. And it's a lot, I promise. The learning curve is steep. I am not a mean grader though, and I'm very open door and I'm very accessible. So if you have any questions, just reach out and chat and I will answer them.